This video is brought to you by SoccerPro.com, offering everyday low prices on all the latest soccer gear with no membership fees. Don't forget to use coupon code SR4U at checkout for 10% off any order of $75 or more. Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you a comparison video today between the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9 and the Nike HyperVenom Phantom. Now obviously the Mercurial series has been around for a long time and is currently one of the most popular lines of soccer shoes, if not the most popular, currently available on the market. Whereas the HyperVenom Phantom is a brand new model from Nike, replacing the Total 90 series. And as you can see, they feature very similar silhouettes and are kind of similarly styled soccer shoes. So for that reason, a lot of people are considering the new HyperVenom over the Mercurial Vapor 9, or vice versa. And hopefully in today's video, I'm going to clarify what the major differences are and make that decision for you just that much easier. Now, if you would like more information on the overall performance of either of these two shoes, be sure to check out the full written reviews on my website, which you can find linked down below in the description. The review for the MV9 is already up and posted, whereas the review for the HyperVenom Phantom, I'm hoping to have posted in the next 24 hours or so. So be patient with that. Go check those out if those do interest you. I also have playtest videos for both of these models, so if you would like more information as to the overall performance as well, be sure to check out the annotations on screen to either of the playtest videos for both of these models. So that's pretty much it as far as the intro goes, and we'll get right into the comparison. To start off with the uppers, both of these shoes are trying to achieve that barefoot feel, but they both do so using completely different upper materials, so the feel is actually a lot different between the Mercurial Vapor and the Nike HyperVenom Phantom. Now with the HyperVenom Phantom, it's an all-new synthetic. It's called Nike Skin. You can see the branding right there on the inside. And basically Nike Skin is a very unique synthetic. It's all new for the HyperVenom Phantom. We saw Nike use it a little bit on their FC 24/7 line, but as far as firm ground, soft ground, outdoor cleats in general, this is the only Nike Skin boot currently out there on the market. And basically the gist of Nike Skin is that it's a combination of two components that are basically fused together. So you can see that the upper itself does have a very heavy texturing about it, almost in this honeycomb pattern, and that is the first layer of the Nike Skin synthetic. It is basically a base layer of mesh, almost in like a webbing pattern. In this case it's in a honeycomb pattern, and that makes up the first layer, or the inside shell of the synthetic material itself. Now what Nike does to basically reinforce that mesh lining is that they fuse on a membrane, or several membranes in this case, of PU, polyurethane plastic material, and the result is an incredibly soft and pliable synthetic material. If I pull out the thing here, you can see how soft and pliable it is from right out of the box. It pretty much has no rigidity to it whatsoever as far as flexing and bending and just moving very naturally with your foot, which is fantastic for pretty much any soccer shoe. And of course, to accompany that feel, you do have your ACC, all conditions control, acting as your wet control element, just as you will with the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9. Now what you get in terms of feel with this particular synthetic upper is that it wraps your foot really nicely, which you'll see later in the on-feet portion of the video. And because it is so soft and flexible, it truly does act like a second skin on your foot and has the feel of a sock. In terms of thickness, it does have some thickness where obviously the lines are on the mesh kind of base layer of the synthetic itself, so it's not quite as thin as what you're going to find from the Teijin synthetic on the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9, but it still is going to provide a very close touch on the ball. As far as grip and texturing goes, you do have an X-ray texturing on the upper here. That's what Nike calls it, and it adds a little bit of grip. It almost has somewhat of a waxy finish to the touch, and it will provide that little bit of extra friction against the ball, more so than you'll feel with the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9, but it's not something that's going to feel sticky. It's just a little bit of extra friction that personally I was a big fan of, but may take a little bit of getting used to if you're going from the Mercurial Vapor 9 to the HyperVenom Phantom. Obviously you do have your off-centered lacing system as well, with the laces being pushed to the outside, leaving you with a very clean instep area or striking zone on the boot itself. I really didn't find it to bother me all that much, and it wraps your foot really nicely. The fit is really key with the Nike Skin synthetic, and because it is so soft and flexible, it truly does act as a second skin on your foot. As far as the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9 upper goes, it's made from a Teijin synthetic material. We've seen them using this particular synthetic on the last couple versions of the Nike Mercurial series. And overall, it's a fantastic synthetic. With the MV9, you do have two upper variations. The one I have here is speed control, as you can see, with these golf ball-like dimplings throughout. Whereas you do have a second option to go with a kind of synthetic leather finish. It has like obviously an artificial leather grain there on the outside, completely smooth. This one's going to provide a slightly thinner feel and a slightly more natural touch on the ball. Whereas the speed control finish is going to offer a slightly more grippy kind of feel on the ball. It does have a more kind of shiny finish about it in the forefoot area of the boot. But for the most part, you're going to really enjoy using either of these two shoes. The difference in feel is not that dramatic. If I had to give my preference, it would definitely be the faux leather finish over the speed control. But again, that is a very minimal difference between the two. Now, the Tahitian synthetic, as you guys can see, is very, very thin. And it's also very, very soft, considering I wouldn't say that it's as soft as what you're going to find from the Nike Skin synthetic, especially after break-in time, although it will soften up on you. But definitely, if you are looking for the ultimate barefoot feel, I'm still going to say that the Mercurial Vapor 9 is the way to go, whereas the Nike Skin synthetic used on the HyperVenom Phantom is kind of completely different, and it's really tough to compare both of these two shoes in terms of touch and performance and what you're going to feel when the shoes are on your feet. Of course, the shoe does also feature ACC all conditions control, again acting as your wet control element. You're going to find it on all the top-end models from Nike, and the central lacing system is something that has been around on the Nike Mercurial series for a long time now. Does a great job of securing your foot in place and just wrapping your foot very, very tightly. You're going to get that kind of second skin feel from both of these two shoes, but in terms of comfort, it's hard to match the second skin feel of the HyperVenom Phantom over the Mercurial Vapor 9. This has a much more restrictive feel, whereas this one feels truly like a sock on your foot. So it just depends on your preference. I'm not going to say one is better than the other based on how they feel, but there definitely is a difference in feel if that's what you're asking. So that's pretty much it as far as what the difference is between both of the uppers, and move on to the stud patterns and sole plates. Now, it's pretty safe to say that the HyperVenom Phantom borrowed some of the design elements in both the sole plate and stud pattern from the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9. You'll see that on the MV9 you have two parts to the sole plate. The first thing being the base, which is made out of dual layer glass fiber all the way through. Depending on the colorway that you go for, you may have only one single layer of glass fiber in the forefoot area, but in terms of performance, it really doesn't change the overall feel of the boot when they are on your feet, so just keep that in mind. And then of course you do have your plastic plate over top that has all of the studs, as you can see. In this case, it's orange, and the glass fiber is always going to be silver. On the HyperVenom Phantom, again, you have a two-part sole plate design. The base of the plate is made out of a glass nylon material, which is still a plastic. It's just a lot more rigid if you guys want to hear the sound. It's definitely not your average plastic, and it is definitely a lot more stiff in the forefoot area. You'll notice that from right out of the box, but give it a couple hours of break-in time and you'll find that it becomes a lot more flexible. That's going to be the case with both of these two shoes. The glass fiber sole plate is also pretty rigid through the midfoot as well as the forefoot area, just like you'll get from the glass nylon sole plate on the HyperVenom Phantom. And then of course you do have your plate base over top, made out of a plastic material. In this case it's actually made out of P-backs. And you can see that your studs are sitting on this kind of plate over top of the sole plate itself. On the HyperVenom Phantom, you do have like a split toe design to go along with the X1.1 last, which is specifically designed for the HyperVenom Phantom. But in all honesty, I didn't notice a difference in performance at all. You can't feel any kind of split in the sole plate either in your hand or on feet. So just keep that in mind and don't expect it to be a major feature on the Nike HyperVenom Phantom. Now, as far as the stud patterns themselves go, they're actually very, very similar when you put them side by side, in that the HyperVenom Phantom is not too far off from what you're going to get from the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9. Now, just at a quick glance, obviously they appear to be very, very different. But if you look at the studs themselves, especially in the forefoot, they almost match up. You can see you have your one stud there, your one stud here on the outside, your one support stud in the middle, again similarly shaped, your one stud on the outside, and your two studs here at the kind of toe-off area on the bottom of the foot. And then obviously the HyperVenom Phantom has some extra studs in between, mainly because it is a plastic sole plate as opposed to a glass fiber, so it's not going to be quite as rigid, and they wanted to cut down on any kind of stud pressure. And then you do have your 2 studs in the back of the heel for the Vapor 9, whereas the HyperVenom Phantom has 4. Again, keep in mind that these are both firm ground stud patterns designed for natural grass plane surfaces. Now, as far as the performance you're going to get from either of these 2 studs, obviously the Mercurial Vapor 9 features all blades. The blades themselves are fairly long and have a very thin profile about them, so they penetrate the ground really easily. And in terms of grip when pushing off, it is probably the best stud pattern on the market in terms of straight up grip when you are pushing off and changing direction. It's very difficult to beat, but the downside of this particular stud pattern is, yes, the studs are fairly long. There's a minimal amount of them, so it really is designed for really nice natural grass plane surfaces where the ground is a little bit softer. If you're playing on really hard ground plane surfaces, you're going to find that this stud pattern just doesn't perform all that well, mainly because the studs can't dig into the ground deep enough. But on really nice fields, the stud pattern is absolutely fantastic. Whereas the HyperVenom Phantom features conical studs, and again, they have a fairly thin profile about them, so they penetrate the ground really easily, but because there are more studs, they're better suited for harder ground plane surfaces. And when you are playing on really softer fields that allow the studs to penetrate the ground easily, you still get plenty of grip at push-off while still maintaining a nice amount of maneuverability. So it is kind of like the best of both worlds between a bladed and conical stud pattern, especially if compared to something like the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9. If you've worn this stud pattern and you liked it, you're definitely going to like what you get from the HyperVenom Phantom. The HyperVenom Phantom stud pattern is my personal favorite of the 2, just because I like to have that little bit of extra maneuverability. But in terms of performance, these are 2 of some of the best stud patterns currently out there on the market. Weight has become one of the major design factors of pretty much every modern soccer shoe, mainly because it's something that a lot of people consider when buying a brand new pair of shoes. Now, what you're going to get from the HyperVenom Phantom as well as the Mercurial Vapor 9 is a very lightweight construction, and in all honesty, it's incredibly difficult to tell a difference between the 2 in weight, either in hand or on feet, simply because they have a weight range that is so close to each other. Now, keep in mind that both of these shoes are brand new in a size 9 US, so we're going to throw these on the scale, and just to let you know, this is a very fair comparison because they're both brand new and they're both the same size. So we're going to throw on the Vapor 9 first, see what these guys weigh in at, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.85 ounces, so just under that 7 ounce mark. Very lightweight, especially considering the solid construction of the boot. So we'll take that off the scale, we'll throw on the HyperVenom Phantom, and you can see that these guys weigh in at 7.05 ounces, so there's a 0.2 ounce difference between the HyperVenom Phantom and the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9, with the HyperVenom Phantom being just a little bit heavier. But again, 0.2 ounces is pretty much an insignificant amount of weight. It's less than the weight of the laces themselves, so it's not something you're going to be able to notice either in hand or on feet. So if you are looking for that very lightweight feel, you're going to get it from either of these 2 models. Alright, here's a look at the HyperVenom Phantom and the Mercurial Vapor 9s on feet, and both of these shoes have an amazing fit. To start off with the Mercurial Vapor 9, I think it's pretty well known that this does have a more narrow cut to it, making it an option that is probably not the best for wider footed players, but that's not really any kind of surprise. If you do have wider feet, you're probably better off sticking to natural leather soccer shoes in general, as opposed to synthetics, mainly because you're not going to get the same amount of stretch out of a synthetic shoe as you will out of a natural leather boot. Now, as far as the fit out of the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9 goes, it's pretty narrow all the way through. You'll find that the midfoot really does hug both sides of your foot, especially when you pull the laces tight. I have about an average width foot, slightly flat-footed as well, and I'm pretty much at the maximum of what this shoe is capable of handling. It does have a slightly tighter fit in the forefoot and toe box area as well. And as far as sizing goes, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US here, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair, I would strongly recommend going true size. Whereas the HyperVenom Phantom features an all-new X1.1 last. It is a shape that is designed specifically for the HyperVenom line. You're going to find it not only in the Phantom, but also in the lower end Fatal and Felon models, and overall I'm really happy with the shape of the boot. It definitely is similar to the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9 in that it does have a tighter fit about it, but for the most part it does offer a little bit more in the way of width through the midfoot and especially in the forefoot area. The most noticeable difference between both of these two shoes in fit is that the forefoot is definitely a lot wider on the HyperVenom Phantom, but I did find that the toe box area, especially from right out of the box, is a little bit narrower than what you're going to find on the Mercurial Vapor 9. Now, what's different about the Vapor 9 from the HyperVenom Phantom is that the Phantom features Nike Skin Synthetic, which actually has a fair amount of stretch to it once you start to break them in. Give the shoe about an hour, hour and a half of break-in time, and you'll find that the Nike Skin Synthetic not only becomes even softer, but it also stretches quite a bit, allowing for a much more comfortable fit after a couple hours of break-in time than they will fit from right out of the box. And that's not to say that they're not comfortable from right out of the box, because they actually are. So as far as flexibility of the synthetics go, you can see that the Tahitian Synthetic is definitely a lot stiffer from right out of the box, whereas the Nike Skin Synthetic is just really, really soft and just moves very naturally with your foot, which is why I would say that the HyperVenom Phantom, to me anyways, is a little bit more comfortable than what you're going to get from the Mercurial Vapor 9. But again, it is a different style of soccer shoe in terms of how it feels. This has a more restrictive fit, where this one has a little bit more of a natural fit. So again, it comes down to preference and what you like the feel of. If you like that really tight feel, go for the Vapor 9. If you like something that is a little bit more natural feeling, a little bit softer, then definitely take a look at the HyperVenom Phantom. As far as sizing goes, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US in the HyperVenom Phantom. And again, the fit and the length is pretty much perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size. So that's pretty much it as far as the on-feet portion of this video goes, and I'll leave you to my final thoughts. Alright guys, that's it for my comparison between the HyperVenom Phantom and the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9. I'm sure a lot of you guys are curious as to know which one is my personal favorite. And out of the two, I have to say that I personally prefer wearing the HyperVenom Phantom. It is unlike anything else that we've ever seen before. And while it is similar in design to the Mercurial Vapor 9, in terms of feel and overall performance, they are actually very, very different shoes from each other. Now, which one is going to be the better option for you? That's really up to you. If you want something that is completely different and has just a very natural feel about it, while still maintaining a fairly lightweight construction, then I would definitely look at the HyperVenom Phantom, especially if you're currently wearing the Vapor 9 or an older Vapor model and is just looking to try something new. But if you do want the ultimate in barefoot feel, I would probably go for the Nike Mercurial Vapor 9. It still is a very, very good shoe in comparison to the HyperVenom Phantom. And in terms of saying which one is better than the other in terms of performance overall, I really wouldn't pick one. I would just say that my personal preference is the HyperVenom Phantom. So that's pretty much it as far as my comparison goes, guys. I hope that helped you out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to support it with a like. Like I mentioned earlier, if you would like more information on either of these two models, be sure to check out the full written reviews linked down below in the description on my website, soccerreviewsforyou.com. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest soccer gear. You can find all of my social media links down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.